Hello, everyone. Hello, hello. Thank you all for joining. So we have an action-packed hour for the launch of the ClimaHealth portal. I'd just like to introduce myself. So I'm Ben Ryder. I sit as a research manager for climate impacts and adaptation at the Wellcome Trust. I'm joined by colleagues from across the world. Opposite me, I have Joy Shumake-Guillemot and from the WHO-WMO Joint Office. And Joy and Maddie will be delivering a short presentation and Q&A of the ClimaHealth portal, which I'm sure you're all very excited to see. Shortly before that, we will have some opening remarks led by Alan Dangour, Diarmid Campbell-Lendrum and Gwen Collman. I'll let them introduce themselves. But yeah, we've got an exciting hour ahead. And yeah, if you have any questions or comments during the webinar, please enter them into the chat box below. And yeah, and I should also note that this webinar is being recorded. But yeah, without further ado, I'd like to hand it over to Alan Dangour.
Thanks very much, Ben, and thank you all for joining today. It's a really exciting day today to see the launch of the new WHO-WMO ClimaHealth portal, and it's great that we're joined by so many of you on today's webinar. My name is Alan Dangour. I'm the Director of Climate and Health at Wellcome. For those of you that are not familiar with the Wellcome Trust, we're a global, international, independent charitable foundation who are seeking to address the major challenges in health globally. And we have made a commitment to spend £16 billion over the next 10 years on discovery research, but also research in 3 global challenge areas, which are mental health, infectious diseases, and climate and health. And leading the climate and health strategy, we have put putting health at the heart of climate change action as our core mission, really accelerating our understanding of the impacts of climate change on health and the adaptation and mitigation actions that will most directly benefit health, and putting that evidence really at the core of climate change action so that we can use that evidence to leverage the rapid and essential change that is needed. So we are really pleased to have been supporting this portal, which brings together these diverse communities and ensures that climate and health science is undertaken with full collaborative engagement of both the health and the climate communities. And that's what makes this portal and this partnership between WHO and WMO so exciting for us to support. So really delighted to be here today. Thank you all very much for the huge amount of work that I know has gone into delivering this portal, and I'm sure it's going to be of huge benefit to the field as it develops. Thank you again. Back to you, Ben.
Okay, thank you so much, Alan. Great. So yeah, without further ado, I would like to hand it over to Diarmid, please.
Thanks very much, Ben. And so, yes, I'm Diarmid Campbell-Lendrum. I head the Climate Change and Health Unit at WHO headquarters in Geneva. I won't introduce WHO. You've probably seen too much of WHO on your screens over the last few years for different reasons. But in addition to obviously dealing with the kinds of challenges that have been thrown up by the COVID pandemic, we have been quite consistent over many years now in highlighting that climate change, we see climate change as potentially the greatest public health threat of the current century. And that's on top of the lives and the health that we lose from extreme weather events, the effect of climate variability, climate change on disasters, but also on changing the transmission conditions for infectious diseases and so on, as well as undermining the environmental determinants of health, such as availability of water and sufficient food. So this resource, this ClimaHealth portal, is a really critical product for us. We, in partnership with other organizations, including WMO, have really scaled up our work on climate change and health adaptation in particular over the last 10 years or so. So we do a lot of work now directly in primarily in low and middle income countries in analyzing the ways in which current extreme weather and the evolving challenges of climate change are stressing health systems and taking lives. And the first demand that we usually have in working with the countries that we work with is not questions about whether climate change is happening or whether it's affecting health. People now accept that. It's what do you want me to do about it, and how can you help us with our day job? And so a large part of that request is therefore for capacity development. So we, both within the UN, both from the WHO side and the WMO side, we work a lot with our national counterparts in order to provide them the orientation, the training, the capacity building, but also access to information, both on the health side and on the weather and climate side, in order for us to inform those programs. We're all, I think all of us behind this work, WHO, WMO, and the Wellcome Trust, are evidence-based organizations. And so while we advocate for actions to be taken, it's very important that those actions, we're not asking people to fly blind. We're providing them with as much access to as much authoritative, reliable information linking climate change or linking climate, weather, climate, and health as possible. So that's why this portal is so important to us. I'll just say a couple of words on the importance of the collaboration as well between the organizations. One of the things that's critically important to us is building the capacity and supporting national institutions. So as WHO, we work side by side with ministries of health, and our counterparts in WMO work directly with national meteorological and hydrological organizations. So one of the important things that we're trying to build through this portal is not just the access to information, but building this as part of a long-term relationship with those national institutions in order to scale up their capacity over time. So I'll before handing back, I'd just like to particularly pay tribute to Joy and to Maddie, who have led the work through the Joint Office, and then also to the Wellcome Trust, not only for the financial support for this product, but also for coming in now so strongly as a real knowledge partner and an active contributor to the area of work. So once again, I'm looking forward to the presentation, to hearing more about the portal. Thanks for your attention, and back to you, Ben.
Great, thank you so much. Yeah, and thank you for your contribution as well, Diarmid. Great, so last but by no means least, I'd like to hand over to Gwen Collman.
Hello, everyone. I'm Gwen Collman. I am the Director of the Office of Scientific Coordination, Planning, and Evaluation in the Office of the Director of the National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences, which is one of the 27 institutes of the U.S. National Institutes of Health. And I'm just delighted to be here today, being able to launch a long-term partnership with WHO and WMO on this issue. NIEHS has been a collaborating center organization from the WHO over the last decade, and has been partners with WHO on many environmental health activities even before that. And in 2014, we at NIEHS launched an activity called the Climate Change and Human Health Literature Portal. At that time, there was a small amount of literature on climate change and health sort of buried within the larger world of information on climate that was out there in the scientific literature. And my predecessor, John Belbis, saw this opportunity to be able to collate and curate the literature and make it available as a public resource to researchers and others, to put it in one place for one-stop shopping. And so over the years, it has grown dramatically. In 2017, there were 1,600 papers that we put in the portal. Each year, that number has gone up and up and up. And just this next year, in 2022, we'll be putting in over 2,500 papers. So that's a testament to the amount of people who are interested in this area and are working very diligently in publishing the findings in the literature. So again, it's just a fantastic opportunity for us to be part of this greater effort. Our portal includes features, links to the DOIs and URLs for the literature, studies about the health impacts associated with exposures to climate variability and also climate change, and all of the different areas of science that Alan and Diarmid had discussed previously. And NIEHS is interested in that and more. In my role as a senior advisor to the NIH Climate and Health-wide program that we are developing, we see there's a great need for training, capacity building, and for research and in all of these areas. And of course, things like the ClimaHealth portal really is an outstanding knowledge base that will assist all of the researchers, their practitioners, the trainees, and others who are trying to implement the solutions that they're creating from these opportunities. So up to date, our literature portal really has reached mostly consistently researchers in the United States. And so this partnership, which I'm delighted to be part of, will really extend our reach, because I know that the ClimaHealth portal will reach people all around the world. And we are excited to be part of something that includes information on all health effects, all impacts, and all types of science that really can help us protect human health and build resilient communities all around the world, and also impact policy implementation to make our living with the climate situation something that we can all do, and we can have it be evidence-based. So again, thank you very much for including us today.
Great, thank you so much, Gwen, and likewise, thank you so much for your contribution to the portal as well. Wonderful, so that concludes the opening remarks portion of the webinar. I would like to hand it over to Joy now.
Thank you very much, Ben, and thanks to all of you for these really encouraging opening statements. So I'm Joy Shumake-Guillemot. I lead the Joint Climate and Health Program between the World Health Organization and the World Meteorological Organization. And I want to share a little bit about why we have built this platform. So I think we have all become increasingly aware that climate change is impacting our lives, and it will continue to impact the lives of generations to come. The climate is modifying the safety and availability of the food and water that we consume, the air that we breathe, the safety of our homes and workplaces, and where and when infectious diseases are often occurring. You know, we're all experiencing the increasing frequency, intensity of extreme weather events, the cascading impacts of these extreme weather events, from unprecedented heat waves and storms to drought conditions. These are all impacting and compounding vulnerabilities at community levels, and therefore putting pressure on our health systems, on our local health workers that are having to deal with these increasing pressures. And so it's really clear that climate change is impacting fundamentally how the health sector itself does business, how it anticipates health problems, and how it is able to anticipate, prepare, and respond to those issues. So the message is really clear that we need to become smarter about how we're understanding these risks and taking action for them. So we all hear the lingo that we need to become more climate resilient, our health systems as well as our communities. But fundamental to becoming resilient comes down to actually understanding the climate, how the local seasons are changing, how local hydrology and ecosystems are being affected, when violent storms are approaching, and what the full impacts of, say, drought or fire conditions might be at the local level. But without understanding the climate, our risk assessments are going to be incorrect, our policies and investments may be insufficient to protect communities, and our preparedness just might be in the wrong place at the right time. So again, we're looking for ways to become smarter about addressing these very dynamic risks of climate change. And using climate science is the first stop to becoming smarter and informing what we're doing in the health sector. It really needs to become a new way of doing and operating in light of climate change. So fortunately, there have been tremendous advances in the last few decades in Earth observations, in weather prediction and climate modeling, data processing, risk forecasting, early warning systems. These are all environmental and climate science and services like the ones you can see featured here on the right-hand side from around the world that are available to support the health community, be smarter, and take better climate-informed decisions in whatever area of public health that may be. But unfortunately, we see that these tools really are not being used. And more often than not, we're seeing lost opportunities for preparedness that could have happened, early warnings that could have been made available to communities, and actions that really could have saved lives if we had been smarter about our preparedness. The scope of this is pretty impressive. In 2020, WHO understood through a country survey that only 5 out of 86 countries reported that they were actually using climate information and services to inform their policy and investment plans. And just last week in the Lancet Countdown, we also reported that in 2021, less than 40% of the countries that reported to this survey actually had climate-informed surveillance systems for heat-related illness and vector-borne, waterborne, airborne diseases, which are all climate sensitive. So these are extremely low numbers when we know that all countries in the world, 193 countries, are affected by climate change. And yet we have a few dozen that are actually using this information in a routine way to manage and monitor their climate sensitive health risks. So that says that there's a lot of work to be done in preparing the health sector and how they use this information. So that was the motivation really behind why we wanted to create the ClimaHealth platform as a comprehensive and authoritative platform that can help increase the access and the use of this kind of information to help connect people to resources, to experts and opportunities, and along the way, encourage partnerships that are so essential, increase knowledge, and hopefully our climate resilience. So as we've already heard, several important partners have come together from the World Health Organization, the World Meteorological Organization, with the coordination of my office, of the joint program, and the NIEHS, who have gratefully allowed us to use the literature portal that Gwen has introduced to make that available to a global audience, and working with our developers and thankfully the support of the Wellcome Trust, we've been able to bring this platform online. Oops. So the content and structure for this site really reflect the research and design process that also informed it. We held workshops and consultations with a range of stakeholders around the world to understand what they're looking for, what kind of decisions they're making, and what kind of information that they need. And in fact, we identified over 3,000 individual questions that our key stakeholders needed answering. And so we've tried to structure the site in a way that can address many of these. So for example, students were looking for case studies and learning resources, whereas donors were looking for synthesis reports and statistics that can help with country level investments or scoping needs. So there are really a broad range of needs that shaped what has been provided in the site today. And so we also drilled down on what are some of the barriers that have been inhibiting the use of this kind of information in the past. And so, for example, we've learned from the health community that there's a real barrier to simply finding reliable, trustworthy information and understanding how to use and interpret this. And then on the meteorological side, there's often a real lack of appreciation for how decisions get made, and therefore how data needs to be formatted, when it needs to be made available, how it should be packaged. And so the site is also trying to address this range of barriers that we've seen limiting the partnerships and limiting the potential of this science that is available. So in the process today, obviously, is a big day that we're being able to bring this portal to life and open it up to the public. But we know that this is really only the beginning for us. We hope as we move into a phase 2 and a live version of the site that we're going to be able to improve its functionality, develop, keep it very responsive to the needs of the community based on feedback that we receive. And so far, this project has been very collaborative in nature, and we very much hope that it will continue to be as we move forward and continue to respond to the needs of the community. So we hope that this product will become a really useful tool for all of you in your toolbox in whatever aspect of climate and health that you work. And we hope that it's going to also serve to really accelerate multidisciplinary research. So now I'm going to turn over to Maddie West, because we're all hoping to see more about what is in the portal and learn how to use it. And so I also have to give a huge amount of appreciation to Maddie, who has made this platform happen and has been behind the development of it. So Maddie, I'll hand over to you now to show us how to use the site.
Great, thank you, Joy, and everyone. So I'm going to quickly just take you through the key sections of the site. I'm not going to get into too much detail because you can all go and explore the site on your own after this. And we do want to save time for Q&A, so I'm hoping not more than 15 minutes. So Joy, you can go to the next one. First up, we have the Understand section. So this is basically a primer on the links between climate and health and the impacts of climate on health and how they can be reduced in more general terms, and also the role of climate services for health. So this section might be a useful refresher for those working in climate or health, and a good introduction to newcomers on the topic. The ACT section, there's an overview page, and that covers the WHO operational framework for building climate resilient health systems. And it also includes the green button there is a walkthrough readiness assessment tool to support countries to identify climate service needs and evaluate their feasibility given the context in that country. There are then 6 pages that dive deeper into the steps to develop and apply climate services for health, which are establishing an enabling environment, developing capacity, identifying needs and conducting research, co-developing products and services, applying those services to health policy and practice, and then evaluating the product and service delivery process. This section will evolve over time. We're hoping to add more targeted how-to guidance for specific tasks, but it's already a great start for those looking to actually do work related to climate and health. Okay, next one in the Learn section, this is where you find our resource library. So we've brought together over 10,000 publications, research articles, tools, case studies, policies and plans, and outreach materials into one library that you can filter by the top or the type of resource there at the top. And you can also filter by hazard, theme, context, country, region, and language using the filter menu. For the tools, there's also a tool type filter, so you can narrow down your results. You can also use the open search in the library to explore or find something specific. The search function searches the title, the author, and the description of the product. Another way to explore the library is by the map. You can see a little screenshot there at the top of the screen. The map does not include the research articles, and it only includes the other content if there is a location relevant to the resource. So it's less content than the other view of the main view of the library, but it's still a useful tool if you want to see just what's available around you, neighboring countries or regions, and you can still filter by case, by type, or by hazard and theme. So next up, we have the country pages and profiles. So we built a country page for every UN member country and a few territories, I believe. All countries have a page that serves as an entry point to access content from across the site. So if there is a WMO integrated health focal point for that country, they'll be listed at the top. if we've developed a profile of the Met service for that country, that link will be at the top of the page. And then there will be tagged publications, tools, case studies, expert groups, news, and events relevant to that country. Now, about 40 of these country pages also include the WHO UNFCCC climate and health profiles. Those have been rolled out over the last few years in batches, and we've included all of them on the country pages. You can download the full profile, or you can just read it on the page directly. These include all kinds of information about the national context and the country responses. This section is quite important, as the country responses, it's basically data tables showing their responses to the WHO Climate Change and Health Survey. And this provides details on whether like a national health and climate change plan has been developed, which sectors were involved, if a VNA assessment has been done, and if it's influencing policy, whether there are health surveillance systems, early warning systems, response plans in place for various hazards, as well as information on human resource capacity, healthcare facilities, infrastructure, technology, finance, and funding challenges. So there is a ton of information in these country pages. They can be quite long, the ones with the profiles. When you click Explore in the menu and then Countries, you'll get a list of all the countries. You'll know which ones have a full profile if they have a little magnifying glass icon next to the country name. So we encourage you to go and explore those. And we will, of course, be adding more profiles as WHO publishes more. So up next, we have climate service provider profiles. Yeah, skip one. So these are basically profiles that feature health relevant resources and activities of meteorological agencies from around the world. So they're intended to showcase how these Met services are using climate and environmental information to support public health goals. The content on these pages is cross-posted across the site to the relevant country, hazard, and theme pages as well. So this is just one way of finding that information, the content produced by these organizations. So we have about 25 of these profiles for now, but we'll continue to add more and add new content to the existing profiles. The content for these profiles was submitted by primarily the focal points, but also other partners at the Met services themselves. So there is a template that they've filled out and provided to us, and they have been asked to continue to provide more information for these pages and keep them up to date. So we're hoping that this is a really interesting way for people to view how their local Met services are engaging in this topic. So up next, we have the hazard profiles, I think. So the hazard profiles provide an overview of a given hazard and how it impacts health, and also how it's impacted by climate change, as well as some information on the geographic distribution of risk, the impact pathways, vulnerable populations, and risk management and mitigation strategies. So the tagged content appears on these profiles as well. It'll show the latest or the most important evidence, publications, tools, case studies, expert groups, news, and events. We have hazard profiles for air quality, chemical hazards, diseases, drought, extreme heat and cold, storms, fire, flooding, geological hazards, harmful algal blooms, nuclear and chemical hazards, and solar radiation. Some of these also have topics, obviously diseases, air quality, storms, that dive deeper into specific types of that hazard. So those are kind of long scrolling pages, but there are quick links via a little icon on the page where you can jump down to the topic you're interested in. Theme profiles are similar to hazard profiles, but they cover related areas of work where an understanding of climate links are important. So these include environmental change, food security and agriculture, health co-benefits of climate action, resilient health systems, occupational health, oceans, One Health, risk communications, and water sanitation and hygiene. So there's quite a few of them. Each profile has a short overview section followed by all that tagged content from across the site as well. So it's another entry point to depending what your interests are. So next we have our progress dashboard. So our progress dashboard connects users to important climate and health data sets. This includes WHO, Lancet Countdown, UNFCCC, UNDRR, and others. In phase 2, we are hoping to actually turn the progress dashboard into like a live interactive data tool where you can explore some of the most important indicators right on our site. So that's something to look forward to in the next phase. Okay, so next up we have some use case examples to show how different user groups might find the site helpful. So these examples are based on the user personas developed in the initial research phase of development and highlight some of the resources that the interviewees told us would help them in their work. So for example, a researcher looking at adaptation policies might explore our resource library for related research, existing policies, climate summaries, or guidance around evaluation of early warning system, as well as processed data and tools. Or they might find key statistics through the progress dashboard, or find new opportunities to share their research in the Connect section via events or connecting with an expert group. So a climate practitioner who's building impact-based forecast models might first go to the ACT section to review the step-by-step guidance on developing climate services for health. They could learn from others by exploring our tools directory and climate service provider profiles to see what services are already being used around the world. They could also use the climate service provider profile page to connect with the focal point and share resources with local partners. Next up, a health project manager tasked with providing evidence and tools to better prepare their community for climate impacts could go to a specific hazard or theme page for targeted resources and information. They could use the readiness assessment tool that I mentioned in the ACT section to identify local needs and capacity, or they could find examples of risk assessments in our library and explore case studies on how other communities have dealt with similar problems. Next one. So a policymaker working on health system resiliency could start with our theme profile on climate resilient health systems and consult country profiles for progress updates. They could find the latest synthesis reports, case studies, and policy examples for specific hazards in our library and in our action section, or ACT section, sorry, and explore our hazard profiles for information on causal pathways. I think that's it for the examples. So moving on, we wanted to give you a brief overview of how this site will be managed and how decisions will be made on content, next steps, and how to get involved. So the site will be actively managed and updated daily by site manager and other admins. Content that's not considered pre-approved for inclusion will be assessed by a multidisciplinary editorial board, which is currently being established. The editorial board members will be responsible for regular review and updating of their overview content on each subject page. And the WMO integrated health focal points from, I don't know how many there are now, but most countries are assigning these focal points. They'll be responsible for providing country content and maintaining the service provider profiles. General oversight, contracts, and managing the board will be done by the Joint Office. And in terms of editorial policy, the full terms, you can find them on our website via the footer. But in a nutshell, we're including content that is related to the application, understanding, or decision-making related to climate and environmental science for health. So barring exceptions from the editorial board and in line with WHO editorial policy, we are excluding content that is not open access from a credible institution, opinion-based, or that promotes political, personal, or religious agendas, or is funded by certain lobbying groups. Okay, so while the site does have already an enormous amount of resources, there are some functions that we just weren't able to squeeze into phase 1 of development. So looking forward, some of the additions we plan to include in the site are to include translations to all UN languages for the core content, turning our progress dashboard into an interactive data tool, as I mentioned, adding more walkthrough framework tools for specific tasks, and providing targeted guidance for different audiences and users. And of course, responding to user feedback, which we invite. I'm going to get into that in the next slide. So we do want to invite you to get involved in helping us make this site as complete as possible. So we invite content submissions for all types of content except the research articles, which, as we've covered, have been provided and are curated by the NIH Climate and Health Literature Portal. So you can email us anytime and submit publications, case studies, policies and plans, tools, expert groups, news, opportunities, and events. If these are clearly within our editorial scope, we will post them right away. If there are concerns or questions, they will go through an editorial board process, and you will be there will be a response either way. We also invite you to send in feedback. We're obviously, we launched today, so there is a possibility that, there could be some glitches here and there, which we will work out. But if you do have some thoughts on the site, good or bad, please just send us an email and let us know what you think. If you have ideas for phase 2, things you think we should include, now is the time to let us know so we can include those in our plans and procurement for the next phase of development. So I think that's all I had to say, and I talked way faster than I needed to, but I wanted to save lots of time for Q&A. So I'll turn it back over to Ben, who I think is managing that, and I'm available if you have any questions, but you can also ask questions to anybody here. Okay, thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Maddie. And I think both to Joy and Maddie, a massive congratulations again on the portal. It's a massive amount of work, and I think that's obvious. The sheer amount of resources you managed to have, it's really impressive. So we'll move on to the question and answer session of the webinar today. In the bottom of the screen, you should be able to see a Q&A portal. Please use that to answer any questions that you might have. I've got a couple already, so let me begin with this one from Madeline Thompson. Hi, Joy and Maddie. Just like to congratulate the team for creating the Climate Health portal. It's such an important new tool for the emergent global health community. But as you're seeking to address a very broad community with the portal, including serving people from very different backgrounds and different ways of communicating, I was wondering how you've prioritized the material today. For new learners to expert users, are you easily able to guide people to material that's written for their expertise? So I guess a question about how to guide people on the website, how are people able to find the resources that are most relevant to them?
So Maddie, do you want to answer that and talk about the tutorials for different users that are also available?
Sure. Well, yes, we have tried to set up the site so that it's fairly user-friendly, no matter what you're looking for. So we have the understand section, which is really the 101 section. So that's where you should go if you don't really have a strong background in the topic, or if you're a climate or health or professional who you're not 100% confident in the links or how you could be connecting with the other sector. So there is that. And then because there is so much content, obviously we can't have everything right up front. So you might, you should explore the site and let us know if you're finding things hard to find. But we are developing guidance for, if you are a researcher, here are our top lists of things you should check out so that you don't miss anything, because it is such a big site. But we have tried to create these entry points depending on your interests rather than necessarily your knowledge level. So if you are looking into extreme heat, we have an extreme heat entry point. If you are just kind of interested in general in what's going on in climate and health in Canada, you go to the country page and you can see kind of everything there. So we have created all these entry points based on interests. And then that overview information is written in a way that it's accessible to everyone. And if you dive into the resources, you'll see that there's some very technical content, and then there are some synthesis reports and basic information as well. So Joy, did you have anything to add to that?
Also tried to address multilingual needs. And so even though the site is predominantly in English right now, there are quite a few resources in their original language. So in the resource library, you can filter by the language that it's available in, and all the documents in Spanish, for example, will show up. But there's an English language translation of the title so that it can be searched and identified regardless of what language it's in. And we will increasingly try to make available documents in other languages. And as Maddie said, we'll be hoping to translate the core content of the site into the 6 UN languages. And we hope that that will also address the very diverse communities around the world that we expect will be using the site.
Perfect. Thank you both. So we've got some questions through. First one, this is from Krista June. She's asked, is there an area of the portal that looks at specific vulnerable populations, such as children or pregnant women, for example?
All right. So in each of the hazard pages that Maddie explained, there's a page on drought and health, on heat and health, on floods and health. There is a drop-down area around vulnerable populations. And so we've tried to describe, based on the evidence, who are the populations that are most vulnerable to those individual hazards. But no, the site has not been organized by population type.
Great. Thank you very much, Joy. So the next question is from Nitish Dogra. I hope I've pronounced that okay.
Yeah.
How can one contribute as an expert to the editorial board?
Great. That's a great question, Nitish. So we are in the process of assembling the editorial board, and we will put out maybe a call for experts to contribute to that. This website also is overseen by a joint expert team between WHO and WMO. So they will also be helping to select and shape the editorial board. But keep a lookout if you are interested in playing that type of role. We'll try to put out a call in the next few months on that editorial board.
Great, thank you very much, Joy. So the next question is from Emily Kruger. She's said, I'm looking on the Connect tab of the website about the WHO-WMO Joint Climate and Health Programme, and is interested in one of the grand challenges in the implementation plan 23 to 33. Could you talk more about this plan and how to get involved in this in the future?
Sure. So the Joint Climate and Health Program and the 10-year implementation plan that you're referring to is the overall framework through which we have developed this portal. So the portal serves the communication targets of that overall implementation plan. This is in the process of being endorsed by the WMO intergovernmental process. It has been approved by the Services Commission just about 2 weeks ago, and it has been developed by the expert team that I just mentioned. So 2023 will be our inception year for kicking off that partnership-based plan. So you can expect more information on this overall program, how we're working together, the different activities, opportunities to contribute to that as we kick off this new program in 2023.
Perfect, thank you so much. So this next question is from Bernd Eggen. Dear Maddie, Joy and colleagues, congratulations. This looks like a very useful resource. Is there a section where you're directing interested users to climate services pages, for example, Copernicus C3S Health Services?
So that's a great question. The tools section of the resource library is where you're going to find all the different types of tools, services, links onto other data portals like the Copernicus platform. So it's part of the tools section in the resource library, and you'll have a number of different filters that you can look for to identify those kind of global products.
And I'll just add to say that we could of course be missing some important things we need to include. Please let us know if there's something that's not there that should be, and that these resources will also be tagged to relevant pages, so we can feature really important resources on the air quality page, for example. We can have a feature right up there we've done this on some of the pages, and they'll also be appearing in the latest added resources tools at the bottom of the page as well. So we're hoping to highlight for users interested in air quality what services are out there for them. Here, the top 3 we recommend or something checking out, and then here's all of them. So the library is one way, the hazard profiles are another.
Perfect, thank you, Maddie. Great, so next one is from Emily Kruger again. She's asked, are there areas of the site with material for the general public or consumers who want to learn about individual actions they can take to reduce their contribution to climate change?
Sure, so I think that kind of information will be found through the theme pages on low carbon and sustainability, and then there are links onward to other resources on other sites particularly. Again, this portal is aiming to direct traffic to find the reliable resources. So in areas where maybe we don't have that specific content listed on the page itself, and I think that may be the case for this question on individual actions for mitigation, it's a topic where we do have direct on to our partner sites, to core information on the main WHO site. Many of you may be familiar with the WHO climate resources. So this platform is interoperable with the WHO site. So we have a very active communication between the 2 sites, where you are often pushed back and forth between those two platforms of where the relevant information is.
Perfect, thank you, Joy. So another one from Madeline. This area of work is going to explode in the coming years. I guess talking about climate health generally. How are you going to ensure that you consistently prioritize the most important and relevant materials?
So we're hoping that the editorial board will play a very active role in keeping their thumb on the pulse of really what is needed. We have already a very diverse advisory group for this project, and we hope through the editorial board we will monitor what is needed. Are there specific thematic needs from Latin America or Southeast Asia or Africa that we need to be putting more attention to? So I'm hoping, again, as a collaborative project, that we'll have an active communication with our partners, with other collaborative projects. There are some other portals available with similar types of information. So we're going to be expanding the partnership of this platform, and we're hoping through that partnership we'll be able to stay attuned to what are the needs, what are the opportunities, and again, what are new information products that we want to be promoting and making sure that they're taken advantage of.
Perfect, thank you so much. So I think I don't see any further questions in my Q&A box. If anyone one more. Oh, brilliant. So one last question from Virginia Murray. Such an exciting development. Congratulations. How can organisations such as the UK HSA Centre for Climate Change and Health Security join and engage actively as a partner?
So again, we're hoping that through partnerships with expert groups like the UK Health Security Agency, as well as other national partners like Gwen represents the NIEHS in the United States. That's a collaborating center with WHO, that we're going to be able to draw upon the expertise that you all are developing at the national level. What is important to your policymakers? How can we share that expertise and make it available through this site for others to learn from? So again, I think having partnerships, and today is launch day, but we will be having, more notifications about discussions we may be having, reviewing of content. We will have calls for information, seeking your contributions, things that you want to make available and share with the world through this site. So that's a really great question, Virginia.
I'd just like to add, you can also subscribe at the bottom of the site for updates, and we'll be putting our calls out through our mailing list as well, so you won't miss anything. And for organizations that want to get involved, you can submit, if you're a climate and health organization, you can submit your own organization for inclusion in the expert groups directory. If you're not already there, just send me a quick description of how your organization works in climate and health and what hazards are relevant for you, and we'll make sure you're appearing on those pages. Also, you can submit content. So if you produce a report, send it to us. Even if you're not a member of the editorial board, you can submit this content. If you have a conference coming up, send it to us, and we'll make sure that our audience sees it. So there are plenty of ways to get involved, all different levels of commitment. So please do subscribe, and we'll put out those calls shortly.
It is also worth mentioning that there will be a social media aspect to the site. So we will also be sharing new updates, new content that is coming in, things that we want to feature. Will be on a Twitter page and other social media. I think you can see the hashtags for it on the next closing slide. So I encourage you to take a screenshot of that for the relevant context.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Joy and Maddie. So another one, this is from Liz Stevens. This looks like a great resource. When you've been pulling this information together, have you noticed any particular countries or topics that are particularly lacking in evidence-based information?
Yes, there are certainly gaps. We know this also from evidence reviews that low and middle income countries are underrepresented in the research on climate and health impacts. We're hoping also by making available this information, those gaps are taken note of and hopefully also addressed. We also feel that there is probably a language bias. Again, as we've been collecting information, it has predominantly come through English language channels. And so in the next phase, we're going to make a particular effort to get into these other language areas. We know that there's great partners, there's research, there's activity happening across the world that we're going to make special attention that we try to bring that into the site.
Perfect. Thank you again. I think that's it for questions. So again, another round of applause for Joy and Maddie. It's a massive undertaking. I'm sure this is going to be a really useful tool for the health and climate research communities, policymakers, practitioners the world over. So yeah, massive congratulations again. Any closing remarks?
Well, thanks again to everybody for joining us today, being interested in this topic. We really hope that we will hear from you as you test the site, you look for things, you tell us about what you found or what is missing. Really, this has been a community effort, and we continue to hope that it will stay that way as it grows as a resource platform. So my thanks again to everybody that has made this possible and your interest in the site.
Thank you. And I just see there was then, do you see the last question about the sharing? Okay.
Yeah, sorry. I was just about to say, So Joy, I think on the next slide, there's details on contacts, social media, etc. But then Bernd has also raised question about if this recording will be shared. Yes, it will. So if you have colleagues that miss this, don't worry, we'll make sure that you can access this recording after we're done.
I'll post the link on the launch announcement and via our Twitter as well.
Amazing. Cool. Joe?
Excellent. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us today.
And thanks, everyone.
So much.
Bye-bye.